Hello, everyone. We are live. Thank you for joining us on the Show Must Go Online. Today's guest is Emilie Battle. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. It's like such a crazy time, and it's
Just
sometimes
a global pandemic and like a civil rights movement, and there's a lot going on.
there's a lot going on, and I love that we are both rocking the big curls, big curls club.
Made bigger by the humidity.
Right? Oh my gosh. I like take one step outside if my hair is, wet after the shower. And then it's like, hello.
I know. It's like, why bother even trying to like style it?
I know.
It's just going to be wild and free.
Wild and free. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. I know sometimes people ask me like, what do you use? And I'm like, conditioner.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes like Moroccan oil if I'm feeling fancy.
Right.
I know. I feel like when you talk about it, then you have to like, you go like this and
always zhuzhing.
Zhuzh away. And to everyone watching at home, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, you can write them. We have it right here. This is awesome. I now have StreamYard, and it's so fancy with this new background, and the comments are right here. So super exciting all the way around. So I always like to start with like, what's your origin story?
My origin story. I grew up in Woodland Hills, California, which is in LA. It's the Valley, so I'm a Valley girl, born and raised. I grew up in a biracial family. My mother is white. I'm Jewish. My father is Black. I grew up like normal kid doing like community theater and kids theater camp. I went to a performing arts boarding high school, my junior year of high school, an amazing place called Idlewild Arts Academy that is on the top of a mountain near Palm Springs. It's like in the smallest town where there's one movie theater, one pizza place, just one of everything, and then an incredible art school. So went there for high school my junior year, and then went on to Boston for college, and then landed in New York. So that's the short story, but.
Well, we are so happy you did.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's so much to even like to talk about we were talking about, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying a lot, like, if you're Jewish and you're not speaking up, like you need to wake up. And now you're kind of coming at it with both of those. So how has that part of your identity kind of like influenced this for you?
It's been really interesting. I think that this movement has brought up a lot for a lot of people. What I've always known to be true, I think growing up biracial and growing up as a Black Jewish woman, is that the Black experience and people's Blackness, it's not linear. It's not a linear experience. Just because you're Black, you don't have the same experience as every other Black person in this country. And just because you're Jewish, you don't have the same experience. I'm sure our Jewish experiences are very different, or not, So yeah, it's brought up a lot in terms of both sides of myself and how I can be there as a Black woman right now, because that's what I am. And I've always identified as a Black woman. I always say like, yes, I am biracial. I am Jewish, and I'm proudly Jewish and proudly Black. But when I've been told a lot in my life that because I grew up with a white mother, I don't really understand what it's really like to be Black. And I think that they don't know what it's like to be Black and Jewish. It's just a different experience. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, if I get pulled over by the police, they're not going to say, oh, you know what? I bet she has a white mother. Like, let's, no, I had someone who I went to college with who recently told me that she's biracial as well. She told me she didn't know I was biracial until after I graduated, so, a lot has come up in terms of identity, but at the end of the day, we all have to be there favor of Black Lives Matter right now. You know, like Black people have, this has been a long occurring situation in Black America. And I'm really happy. I mean, I think this should have been done years ago, decades ago, but I'm happy that whatever is happening right now, it seems as though we've all had enough. And I'm really excited about the protests that are going on. I'm excited about people celebrating all different types of Blackness. I love seeing other Black people uplift each other, and Black women and Black men, and, you know, queer, gay, trans, Black people. Like, it's all for the same, the good of the same cause, you know? Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's such a good point too, that you can't be for part of Black Lives Matter, right? No. You have to be for women, men, trans, queer, as you were saying, because if you choose, then you are also discriminating. Then you are also finding a way to knock someone down. And this whole movement is about lifting each other up. And I've even been trying to, like, what was that? There's a delay.
And supporting each other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like with these things, it's always like, you know, that tough thing. Like, you say something and then you're like,
Then you go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, I just watched this conversation about, it was like the Canadian Jewish organization, Jews of Color, got together with like rabbis and a psychologist. It was like a really interesting blend, and like hearing the Black Jewish experience, which of course, as you said, is not the same for everyone, but I think it really opened my eyes to certain things, and maybe even some discriminations within the Jewish community that I didn't even realize were happening. But now that I am aware of it, like people being like, oh, how did you become, you know, a Jew? And it's like, well, okay, do you ask your like white friend that? Like, you know, I feel like I look super Jewish, right? Like, I got the Jew fro, and, you know, I'm Brazilian, Egyptian, Italian, American Jew, right? Like, that's my mom who's watching. Oh, did you watch it? Yes, it was wonderful. She sent it to me. And like, she's from Brazil, right? So we've got like another story of like someone from another country with a different identity as well coming into the mix. And I feel like this is just, there's so much.
And I mean, the amount of times still to this day, but especially growing up, the amount of times I would tell people I was Jewish and people go, real? No. Like, they think I'm joking, or they just like choose not to believe it. Which is so strange, because I'm like, religion is like a belief system. Like, you're not born with a religion according to your race. And I remember as a kid, you know, it was really confusing to me, because I had always just known, like, my mom was my mom, my dad was my dad. Like, I didn't think there was anything strange or abnormal about that. And so when people would ask me, like, you go to Hebrew school? Why? You know? But it's funny, because within like going to temple, and like, I feel like Jews, like, if you are Jewish, they're like, welcome, come on in. Like, you know, it's always been very welcoming to me from Jews. I think it's just, you know, it's ignorance. It's people not being used to it, and that's fine. And I'm happy to educate. But we actually just did Amara Brady, who I know you know. She actually just got a bunch of Black Jewish women together for a really cool project that should be dropping like any second. So keep on the lookout for that. But it was really special. And I'm noticing more in the theater industry. Like, I was asked to do a reading of a show called A Hanukkah Carol, I think it was called, but basically like a Christmas carol for Hanukkah. And they asked me to be a part of it. And I was so honored, because I never get asked to play Jewish roles ever, even though I'm Jewish, you know? And so I was so grateful that they were like, oh, we know Emilie's Jewish. Like, you should be in this. And didn't think twice about it, you know? So hopefully it's something that people start seeing more of and start embracing a little more of, because we exist. There's a lot of us out there.
Well, that makes me so happy that you do feel like you've had a, mostly positive Jewish experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what I love about being Jewish. I feel like part of my Jewish identity is just the cultural identity that like we are accepting. And if you feel like you need a home, like here, come in. And like if you don't have a place to celebrate, the high holidays, like come on, join us, because that's like the spirit. So
yes.
Well, this is fun. I knew when you said you had a unique story, I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear. And this is certainly
very unique to like just, I think, the performing industry as a whole. My story is not typical, I don't think.
So yeah, like Tim's asking, have you ever experienced being typecast due to racism, or do you not get a role because of racism?
It's interesting. I don't like, we go in and audition for things and either we like get the part or we don't, and we don't hear any reason why. That's like the beauty of being an actor. You just rarely know why you didn't get a role. So I have never been told to my face, like, you didn't get this role because you're Black. I know I have gotten roles because I'm Black. And people are like, oh, we need a Black person in this cast, like put out a casting announcement. So I know that I've definitely been a part of a show because of that. I'm hopefully for more than just that, but it's interesting because like I said, Blackness isn't linear. So my experience in the industry is like, yes, I'm a Black woman. I don't have the type of voice that people expect a Black woman to have. I cannot riff unless it is written out and I'm given time and rehearsal to like really practice that run. I can't do it. I wish I could. I can't make it up on my own. I don't have that big, like I didn't grow up in a church and I don't have that voice. And sometimes going into audition rooms as a Black woman, people expect you to sound a certain way. And then I don't. And it's interesting because for a really, really long time, I really tried to sound the way that I thought they wanted me to sound. And I took a master class several years ago with a casting director, and I told her that this is kind of something I've struggled with. And so she had me sing like my go-to song, my go-to audition song, which I forget what it was, but it was like really big and belty and like scream. Yeah. And I sang that, and then she was like, okay, now sing like a really simple ballad. And so I sang a simple ballad, and she was like, that ballad was 1,000 times more interesting to watch than you trying to scream and riff and belt real high. And she was like, save that for the women that's their thing. Like, you do you. And if you don't get a part, you don't get it, but maybe they're like, oh, I didn't expect that voice to come out of her. Like, she's not right for this, but I'm casting this that she's perfect for. And when I started going in with that mentality into audition rooms, and I think I actually auditioned for Dear Evan Hansen like 2 weeks later, and I went in with that mentality and got the job. And I really don't think I would have if I hadn't had that interaction with that woman. And it's totally, I auditioned for Broadway Bounty Hunter. Same situation. There was something written in the audition song where it said like, she riffs wildly. And I was like, I can't do that. So I'm gonna show you what I can do, and then ended up getting the job. And so it's like a really powerful lesson for me to learn that I can just go in and do what I do and not try to do what other Black women do. And like, I can have success, Yeah. So, yeah.
Very true. Yeah, I always say Jew, which also takes on a new message now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is true though. Like when you try to be someone else in any industry, in any job, in any aspect of your life, that it's hard to be truly authentic if you're not feeling like you're being yourself.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard in the theater industry because the theater industry is competitive and there is a lot of us out there and there are a lot of insanely talented people in New York City. And, you want to work, like you want to get these jobs and you see the audition appointment and the breakdown and you want to get it. But what I've realized over time is that the jobs that I've gotten in theater have 1000% been like so my thing. Like they've been so me. And I would rather maybe work less frequently and do jobs that I know are just couldn't be more my thing than consistently working and trying to prove myself and trying to pretend that I'm someone that I'm not, you know?
Right. Yeah, I imagine that must be so difficult sometimes because you want these roles and if you see a script and you're like, well, I don't agree with everything in that, but you know, I'm really looking to be in something. Does that play a role for you?
Yeah, I mean, I take every audition as an experience. I very, very, very rarely will like tell my agent like, no, I'm not interested. Because it's always an experience and it's always a chance to get in front of people that you may not know or whatever. There have definitely been auditions that I've gotten where I'll get the appointment and I'll be like, oh, I do not think this is for me, but I'm going to do my best and I'm going to go in anyway. But then there are auditions and it's usually the parts that I get where I've been like, oh, this is my show. Like, I need this gig. This is mine. No one else can play this part. And those are ironically usually the ones that I end up getting. But yeah, you know, there are always ones where you're like, I don't think I'm right. But no matter what, like you always have to try to do your best at those auditions, even if you know, like, I'm probably not going to get this job, but like, whatever, you always have to do your best because I have gone into a lot of auditions where I don't think the job was right for me. I've gone in, done my best. And then like a week later, the same casting director will call me in for something else. And that's ultimately what you want. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because I always hear like you're not just auditioning for this one role, right? You're auditioning to be seen and recognized, and that 100% makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about like a lot of these individual experiences. So let's start back with Dear Evan Hansen. What was that like?
Dear Evan Hansen was crazy because before Dear Evan Hansen, I had taken like 2 or 3 years off from auditioning in theater to become a Pilates instructor and start working in fitness, which is a whole other journey. And so I took that masterclass that I spoke of before because I wanted to get back in front of casting directors and being like, hey, I exist now, I'm back. Auditioned for Dear Evan Hansen, got it. And when I was the standby for Crystalline Lloyd, who played Alana. And so when I was cast, they had actually already been in rehearsal for several weeks. And so I came in I think it was their first week of tech was my first day of rehearsal. It was 4 days before our first preview. And I just remember walking in, Michael Greif was like, hey, what's up? Alex Lackmore was like, what's up? And they were like, just sit down, try to absorb what you can. And I was like, okay, like, you know, but I will say, I remember sitting at second stage in the audience and they were doing their first like full tech run through of the first act. And that was the very first thing I saw on my first day of rehearsal. And I remember watching this and I was like, this show's going to win all the awards. Like, I was like, this is going to be a huge hit. So Dear Evan Hansen was kind of like getting shot out of a cannon. I auditioned for it on a Sunday. Got the job on a Wednesday morning. So it was Sunday, got the job Wednesday, started rehearsal Wednesday night. So
what?
Yeah, it was crazy. I had my first audition Sunday. I think I had one callback on like Monday. And then I had my last callback Wednesday morning at second stage. They called me like an hour and a half later and they were like, you got the job and you start tonight at 7. I was like, oh, cool. So that was crazy. I mean, it was a lot of like learning a lot of material really fast, pretty much on my own. There was a really awesome group of standbys there with me. So we all hung out a lot. I mean, that's all we did. We hung out backstage and just like waited. But Dear Evan Hansen was cool. And it was cool to be a part of that show when I was a part of it at second stage because it was before it was like the massive success that it is now. So it was really cool seeing people experience it for the first time and to kind of just watch it grow into what it is now. So it was an awesome experience. It was a nice little, like, I'm back into
Yes. It's so interesting to see shows off Broadway and then see how they progress on Broadway, and just like what they liked, what they didn't. And sometimes you'll see people are like, oh, I really missed that one part from off Broadway. Or are there any things like that like come to mind?
From Dear Evan Hansen, not so much. I remember, like, it's funny because even off Broadway, we had we had fansins, like fansins were a thing. We had people who saw that show more than I watched it, and I watched it a lot as a standby. Like, you're always watching, but and they would be like, "Oh, I noticed that they cut the line where so and so says this," and we were like, "How do you know that?" So yeah, there weren't any things that I remember. I do know that, like, I watched that show infinity amount of times, and every single time it made me cry. Every time. When Rachel Bay Jones sings that song at the end to Ben Platt, when Ben sings Words Fail, like, every night, as if I didn't know what happened. Like, always really, really moving. So
yeah. And Dear Evan Hansen's one of those interesting ones, kind of like Hamilton in a lot of ways for a lot of people. But for me, I was a reporter in Texas, and I knew I wasn't going to see the original cast. I knew that I wasn't going to, be able to see it for like at least a year, if not more. So I would listen to the cast album all the time. Then when I finally saw it on Broadway, it was like, that makes sense there. Oh, that comes together. And like, I knew all of the words, and yet still just like tears. And like, it's every night, like you're saying, what's happening. You're anticipating do you ever like anticipate cry? Like, the scene's about to come. The tears start coming.
There's no way I'm going to cry again. I know what's coming. And then you're just like a puddle.
Yeah.
And every time. And then also, like, sitting in the audience watching the show so much, like, you watch the audience watch it. So if someone is, like, if your friend is there or like your parents are there, like, you sit and you like watch them watch it, and then you watch them start to cry. And there was, like, without fail, always a moment in that show where it was just a sea in the audience of people like, like, it happened every single night, which is like a testament to like the amazing cast. Like, I mean, I honestly was like always blown away by Ben Platt and his performance in that. Like, the emotional journey that he has to go on for that character, and the fact that he as an actor was able to get there every night there were tears, like, that was incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that was just, I could only imagine. I remember my friend Jackie, actually, whose birthday's coming up. We went to a Broadway flea market. I guess it was 2016, because Dear Evan Hansen came to Broadway 2017. Am I getting that right?
I think so, yeah. 2016. We were
2016, yeah, because we were at the flea market, and they had like the apple and the cast and the things, but I didn't know about it. I didn't know the show. So she's like, oh, I think I'm going to get this thing. And I was like, I'm not, like, but you do that. She's like, I've heard really good things. And I always remember thinking back to that moment. Like, I should have known when she said, oh, this is a really good thing. It's just, I don't know about you with your, like, especially because you're in the industry, but throughout the years, like, the things I knew about, right? Like, I only knew about Broadway. If it were on Broadway and I could walk to the box office, I knew about it. And like, if it was a big name show. And now as a theater reporter, I'm like, there's so much value in off Broadway, and I can't believe how much I've missed out on.
Yes. Off Broadway there's a lot of amazing work that takes place off Broadway. And it's like, to me, as someone who's in the industry, off Broadway seems like it seems a little more artistic, not saying that Broadway is not artistic, but Broadway is a business. Like, it is a business, as we've all seen, like with COVID, like,
right.
Like, at the end of the day, Broadway has to make money in order to run. And off Broadway and off Broadway, depending on where you are and who you're working for, there's like a lot more room for like artistic freedom, which is really, it's fun as an actor to get to do that,
Yeah. So let's talk about a show you did off Broadway with Broadway Bounty Hunter.
Yay. The best.
And like, how was getting in the Hansen family?
It was really cool. I had always heard of him. I had never met him, but I was friends. You know, I did Dear Evan Hansen with Will Rowland, and Gerard Canonico was a standby with me. And so I had heard a lot about Iconis and about his shows at 54 Below. And I had only ever heard wonderful things. And so I got the appointment for Broadway Bounty Hunter to audition. And I was like, oh, cool. Joe Iconis, I know him. I think he should be awesome. And the audition process for that show was just so fun. Like, it was so fun. And that was one of them where I was like, I have to get this job. Like, I want to work with these people. I want to be a part of this family. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't know any of them until I auditioned personally. So it was great. That whole experience from audition to its end was just a joy. And it's nice, like a nice bonus is to now be a part of the Iconis family and to get to do things like the Christmas show and, you know, whatever other little project. I think everyone who's part of the Iconis fam is like, if Joe is like, hey, I need you to do this, we're like, all right, I'm gonna cancel everything and I got you, you know. He's a joy. He's a really special person to have in this industry. I've told him that, like, working with him is like it's like doing theater camp at a professional level, you know, because it's very inclusive. It's really creative. He surrounds himself with really, really joyful, wonderful people in this business. And he tells really, really cool stories, and he's also crazy talented, and his music is amazing. So it's a really fun family to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, I love Joe Iconis. If people have watched my series at all, they know, like, I saw Broadway Bounty Hunter at least 3 or 4 times. I saw Be More Chill like 5 or 6 times. There's so much joy. And then seeing you at the Christmas spectacular, that was extravagant. I forget the 12th annual.
I think it's extravaganza because I think the Rockettes took spectacular. So I don't think we can call it spectacular.
Okay. Yes.
Come for us otherwise.
Right. And you don't want that. But the 12th annual Joe Iconis and Family Extravaganza. Yeah. If I'm getting all of the things together, I'd heard how big it was and how that was one of those things, like, even if you saw videos or photos, you wouldn't understand until you were there. And I couldn't agree more, right? Like, people are coming at all the directions, people are handing out chocolate, and you look one way and then this is happening there. And it's like, it's so immersive, and it's like, ooh, I want more of this type of immersive theater.
Yeah, it's like a joyful Christmas explosion. And I remember when he asked me to do it, I was talking to Will and Gerard about it, and they were like, you're not going to know what to expect until you're like on stage at the show. And I was like, cool. And they were so right, because it's like theater camp. It's like we threw it together. A lot of people who do it have done it for years and years and years, so they kind of knew what they were doing. But for me, as like a newbie, I was just like overstimulated. But it's like a Christmas explosion, and it's just so joyful. Like, there's a reason why. I mean, I'm pretty sure it sold out. The whole run sold out before, like weeks before we opened. And there's a reason why. And there's a reason why people come year after year after year. There's a reason why people come to every single show. Like,
my goodness,
it's the whole thing. And I had heard of it. And again, it was really fun. It was really exhausting.
I could only imagine.
But it was really fun.
Yeah. I was so happy I got to see it because it sold out, like you said, and I was messaging Jen Sandler, who's at 54 Below and one of the producers of Broadway Bounty Hunter, and a mutual friend couldn't make it, which I felt very bad for her. But then I got to go, and I was very grateful. And we went together, and I wore my Hanukkah sweater, as I tend to do.
I remember that. I remember your Hanukkah sweater, because I was like, yeah, Hanukkah.
Yes, it's so much fun to wear that. And yeah, that it is. Joe, I've done so many interviews with Joe. Probably I would say like him and like Alex Brightman are the two I've just like interviewed the most, which is pretty cool company because they're just like really nice people. And I remember asking Joe, you know, like all of your casts are very diverse in so many different ways, right? There's not just like that one token Black person, Jewish person, this, that. And he's like, well, what do you see on the subway? Right. And it's like, that's what I want my shows to look like. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I love that idea, that saying, and that mindset that it's not just like, well, this is what I think, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is the more diverse, the better, because that's what our country, our world, and especially New York City looks like.
Yeah. And like, wouldn't you think that would just be the norm? Like, you know, like saying it that blatantly, like, well, what do you see on the subway? What do you see walking down the street? Like, that's what life is. But what was really cool about Bounty Hunter in particular is like, yes, it was like a super diverse cast. And like you said, diverse in all different ways. Like, it wasn't like, well, we need everyone to be the same height. But like, we were like all over the place. What was cool for me as a swing is they gave me the freedom, meaning Joe and the other creatives gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted with the characters that I covered, which isn't common. Normally when you're, or not normally, but usually when you're a swing or a standby, you kind of have to like emulate what the onstage actor is doing. It has to be very consistent. You're in the same exact costume plot, and you know, everything is very similar. And with Bounty Hunter, they were like, when you go on, it's your take on the character. It's your expression of who this person is. You know, like Jasmine, who I know was on your show, Jasmine and I could not be more different people. So obviously we're going to play our role two different ways. And it was nice to have someone be like, you're allowed, you can do that. The costume designer, she made me and Ian, the other swing, our own costumes. It wasn't a version of what Christina wore, Jasmine wore, Badia wore. It was our own thing, catered to our bodies, catered to what we were comfortable in, catered to how we envisioned our characters to be. And that was amazing. I've never experienced that before. It was great.
That must feel so freeing as an actor to know that you're also originating a role because you don't just have to copy.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. That just makes me love this family even more.
I know. Me too. And also just like, as a woman, like costume wise, like I'm a curvy girl, and to have a woman be like, what do you feel comfortable in? And to understand how to dress my body and how to not just like hide it away with lots of fabric and boxiness. Oh, bye, Tim. It was really nice to have someone just like celebrate my body and my femininity through the clothes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And having a female director, right? Like, I feel like the more diverse voices you have, and the more, if someone is, you know, a cis white man, straight white man, and he's like, I know what I know, and you know what you know, let's get together and chat it out, and like, let me learn from your experiences. That's the best type of theater and like life, right? I think that's part of the whole experience right now is, you know, as a white Jewish girl, this is what I come to life with. Let me learn from your experiences. Let me take a step back, do my research, ask questions, and listen. Yeah. Because if we just try to overtalk or oversimplify things, you can't, because everyone has their own life experiences, and that's beautiful to see.
Yes, and you need someone. There should always be someone in the room that you feel comfortable going to, and usually it's the person that you can identify with the best. Right. So, you know, like having a female director, and if they're, you know, like there was a whole scene in Broadway Bounty Hunter that took place in a hoe house. And like, yes. As a woman, if I felt uncomfortable doing something, acting like a hoe. Like, it was nice to be able to, I mean, I never did because I was like, whatever, let's do it all. But it's nice to have the option of going to another woman and being like, hey, girl, that part, like, I don't know. I mean, even with my costumes, I remember putting on a pair of pants and I was like, I feel a little too jiggly in these. And she was like, great, they're gone. You know, and like only a curvy woman would understand. Like, if you feel a little too jiggly, they're gone. Let's try something else, you know?
Amazing. Yeah. And that whole scene, especially because, I saw it throughout previews and then when it opened and seeing like, some of those changes and stuff, and you're like, I can't believe they're allowed to do that. And I love it.
I loved that scene. I went on for Jasmine's track and I got to like open the Hoe House scene. And a friend of mine saw me go on and he was like, you have never been more yourself than you were dancing in silhouette in front of like a red backlit scrim in like leather and chains with your hair. And I was like, I felt so alive. I was like, this is it. This is everything I love.
Yes. Oh, I love to hear that. And Andy saying, yes, curvy girls for the win. That's awesome.
Yes, always.
Yes, yes, yes. So talking more about understudies, and swings, y'all are superheroes. Like, I simply don't understand how you can have so many different tracks and personalities and try and have your own spin on it. And like, even just what to wear, when, and what to say. I don't know. There's just so much. What goes through your head?
Literally all the things go through your head all the time. Like, there's no, like, you don't leave the theater or leave rehearsal and you're just like, finally, day's done. Like, I was on the subway, like going through harmonies. Yeah. Lots of note cards were written. I made little note cards for every track. And so on each note card, it would say like the scene, where I enter, maybe something that I do in the scene that I need to know about, like in the world of Bounty Hunter, like you grab this like katana and move it over here, whatever, or like nunchucks. So it was like a little cheat sheet of like what I had in the scene, which way I exit, and then like my costume change, where it takes place. There was a lot of me sitting like in the hallway in a corner during a show, like writing down notes, following where people go. And then there's a lot of like doing the show by yourself downstairs when everyone is upstairs performing, and we have the monitor so we can hear the whole show. And there's a lot of you just looking like a crazy person, like doing like nunchuckography with your practice nunchucks by yourself.
Nunchuckography, oh my goodness.
Nunchuckography, that was a real thing. And like, I think the most terrifying thing when I went on, because we had to do a whole dance number with nunchucks, and I was just like, don't miss. But yeah, it's a lot of, you feel like there's a lot going on in your head at once. Luckily, I mean, I have a friend who's been a swing in, I want to say 3 or 4 Broadway shows, and she's always covered like at least 8 tracks. And that I'm just like, I don't know how you do. She was a swing in SpongeBob, which I'm like, that must have been the biggest explosion of your brain. Because SpongeBob, they have like skateboards and like aerial, that was a lot. So I had 3 and I was like, this is plenty. Like, I don't need any more than 3 tracks to cover. And I actually felt like by the time I went on, I really felt like I had a handle on all 3. Like, it would be nerve-wracking, obviously, but there also the thing as a swing is like, you don't really get rehearsal until the show is open. So it's a lot of you working on your own while other people are rehearsing. And then you're in previews, where, as you mentioned, things change every day. And so then they're just breezing through and they're like, actually, you know what, you go over here. And you're just like, okay. Like,
nope.
You know? So it's a lot of work on your own, because usually as a swing, you get thrown on before you've had a chance to have any formal rehearsal. Someone like accidentally trips over a wire and breaks their ankle, and you're the one that has to be ready. Luckily, that didn't happen to me, but the fear of that happening is what kept me so on my game, because I was like, you guys won't get me. I will be ready if something happens. So it's a ton of work, but I'm really happy I did it. I'm happy I had that experience.
So are we. Have there been any experiences throughout your acting career that you were put on like mid-show or like right before it started?
Luckily, no, actually. Yeah, I haven't. With Bounty Hunter, I had ample time to know. I was actually supposed to go on for all 3 tracks that I covered throughout the course of the run, but then unfortunately we closed too early. So I only went on for 1. But no, I personally haven't had that experience. Knock on wood. We can leave it that way. I don't need to have that experience.
Yeah, that's a lot of anxiety. Must be exhilarating, but I couldn't do it. And yeah, I mean, and talking about that, it did end too soon. I feel like when you take a risk and have a new musical, right, and you're taking a risk and you're having this really like cool story and a new story, and it's not based off of like a Broadway blockbuster or something like that, and like the jams that come out of that song are just like, what was it like in the family? Because like when you're in the audience, like you're jamming, you're having fun, like it's clearly just like a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time for us too, every single night. I mean, I remember our sits probe, we all like lost our minds. I wish there was more footage of our reactions the first time we heard all that music with the band, because we were like at a rock concert. But yeah, it was always exciting. That music was always fun. Like I said, Joe surrounds himself with wonderful people. That cast, truly, like as cliche as it sounds, like we really were very close. We were like a family. We all loved being around each other. There was no drama. There was no tension. Like it was a really, really joyful way to spend the summer. And so I know when we got our closing notice, partly we were like, damn, like I was having a lot of fun with you guys. Like now what do we do? And I think the week after we closed, I had like a girls' night at my house for the Bounty Hunter girls, because we had also been working so hard to put the show up that we never got like a lot of time to really hang out outside of work. So yeah, and I'm still I was just texting Jasmine last night, like we're still all buds. So
yeah, I love to hear that. And were you at the Be More Chill closing as well on stage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was amazing.
I was like, I just put that on like an hour ago, and I was listening to it and sobbing, and I like from the audience once again like crying, could not imagine. And then like Jason Sweet Tooth Williams is choking up, and I'm like, you lose it, I'm losing it, like
yeah, that was awesome, because I saw Be More Chill Off-Broadway, and I actually took a girl who I used to be her nanny. And now she's like 16. At the time she was 14. Wow. But I took her to see Be More Chill because I thought she'd like it. This was like, I hadn't been her nanny for years, but I was like, let's do the show. And I really enjoyed it. And I knew obviously like the massive impact that show had. And so I was like, oh, how cool that we get to be a part of this closing. And standing on stage and looking out at how emotional, like, I mean, these teenagers and kids, whoever, everyone, like they identified so strongly with this show.
Yeah.
And you can see they weren't just like, oh, bummer, the show's closing. Like they felt like a part of their heart was being taken away. Like it was so powerful and moving and emotional. And then not only to see the people in the theater, but then to know there were people outside at the stage door who couldn't get in, who were watching it like live stream. I was just like, whoa, this is a whole thing. It was really special to be there.
Yes. Oh, May. She says, hi, I'm loving this interview. Thank you. Mostly her right here. Yes, there are a few moments like in Broadway history where like being in the room where it happens, right? Like just being in that energy. And having the like luxury for me to be filming a lot of these things is really cool, because I get to like, I see the comments on YouTube and whatever, and people being like, oh my God, thank you for recording this.
Yeah.
But there's also never, you can't replace being in person at theater, right? Like even like with all the things going on right now with, you know, bootlegs because Broadway shut down, and like whatever your feelings on that, when people are saying, well, if there are more bootlegs, less people are going to the theater, I always hear the opposite, right? Like I saw a bootleg and it made me want to go to the theater.
That is true. And it's interesting because that's such a thing. Like I didn't grow up with that, you know?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I also feel like, you know, like there was a whole Instagram fan page for the swings of the shows. And I did not know what a swing was when I was like 13 years old. Like my extent of theater was like, I would see a show when it came to LA with my mom. Shout out Sharon Battle for always taking me to shows. But we would see that. If you're lucky after the show, you get to maybe see someone come out the stage door, but like stage dooring didn't exist, you know, like it wasn't a thing. And so, you know, to have all these people like filming things and posting it on YouTube, like it really does give people access to theater in a way that they wouldn't have access to, and also a knowledge of the industry that they wouldn't. Like I said, to have a whole fan page dedicated to swings is amazing. Like, and I don't think kids would know what a swing was or what we do if it wasn't for social media and YouTube. So, you know, I have my feelings about bootlegs as an actor, but when it comes to like the reach that it has, you know, if it exposes more people to theater, then that's cool, you know?
Right, exactly. Like I know, once again, I've never been on that side of it. So except in like high school, and you wouldn't even bootleg a High School Musical, but like I could only imagine how distracting that would be, right? Like, or in the audience, if someone is holding up a phone or a camera during like the whole show, like that's super distracting. So I feel like there needs to be like a better avenue, right?
Yeah, it's distracting, and it's also like there's a weird feeling of like not having control of where your image is gonna go, like. You know, like you're just like, I don't know where this is going to get posted, who you're going to send it to. And so that's also, it's slightly invasive in a strange way while also being distracting. And also part of it is just like, enjoy the experience, you know, like put your camera down, enjoy the experience. I know that like I've seen your, what you film, and it's usually like, it's curtain call and everyone's standing up and this, and that's always joyful and fine. But, you know, also it's like the same thing of like turning your phone off at the theater. Like give yourself an hour and a half, 2 hours of just being immersed in this experience. And you don't have to worry about life outside. Like you don't have to worry about likes and comments, and, you know, you can just have this moment.
100%. Yeah. Like especially like you're saying, because I film so much of that, when I am in the show, the last thing I want to be doing is being on my phone. Like it's this beautiful moment of like, my only job here is to watch and to applaud and to cry and to feel all the feelings. And then, you know, like, cause I, especially like for Be More Chill, like I teamed up with the Be More Chill, like social media team. And I like filmed the post-show hangs, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But you also learn, like you can hold your phone or your video camera like a certain way where it's not distracting anyone else because it's right here. And that's just something that like over time I've developed, and like you learn how to like, you know, use your elbow and like keep your arm steady. But if you're doing it like up like that or whatever, it's super distracting. So just a word to the wise, like if you're going to film something that you're allowed to film, do some practice and training so that you're only doing it and you're not bothering the people around you.
I went to a show once, I think it was Off-Broadway, but I remember the overture started and the woman in front of me took her phone out, was like this, and then turned around and was like filming the audience behind her, filming. And we were just like, is she for real? Like, that was extreme. Don't be that girl. Don't be her.
No. Oh my goodness. That, Yeah, I've tapped a few people like on the shoulder gently, just being like, hey, you're not allowed to film or photograph. And usually they're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, I didn't hear the whole thing that they said before the show, but that's cool. Like, 90%, whatever. This is not a conversation about bootlegs. It's just, it's one of those things that's been happening on social media so much right now. So it's just like in my conscious, and trying to make it is right, and having the ability to make theater more accessible, like things like the Broadway in Bryant Park, where you can, like, that's an opportunity for everyone to go and see like the actual actors perform. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's Broadway in Bryant Park is super fun. Yeah.
That's something it's actually cool. I grew up going to that, right? Like on my Thursdays at lunch. Now I'm working it. That's like a cool full circle thing that, and it's interesting you saying that, like, you didn't have that stage door experience growing up, but have there been any stage door experiences now, especially like you said, swings are getting more props and like recognition? Have you had any of those moments?
Broadway Bounty Hunter was a big one, just because, like we said a million times, everyone loves Joe Iconis. Everyone loves anyone who is associated with Joe Iconis. Yeah. And so Broadway Bounty Hunter was the first time that I got like fan art, like for me, like just from not like as the cast and whatever. And so that was really cool. And like, yeah, it was just really special. Like I felt very, like I had a really cool relationship with like the swing fan page, the girls who ran that. And it was nice to like get to know them. Doing Bat Out of Hell was also a big one, even though that was very short-lived. But Bat Out of Hell is all the music of Meatloaf. And like Meatloaf, apparently everyone loves Meatloaf. And so if you are in Bat Out, like I actually got a really, really lovely letter from a fan from Bat Out of Hell, because one of the parts I covered, I was the first Black woman who would ever play that part. I never got to play it, but I was the first Black woman to play it. And someone wrote me a really, really sweet letter about how she has always wanted to sing her songs, and someone in her class told her she couldn't because she was Black. And so seeing that I was cast as that meant a lot to her. And so that's the thing, is like, you never know who you're reaching and who you're affecting and who you're inspiring. Like, I know as a kid, like there were so many, like Heather Headley could do no wrong in my eyes growing up. Like I wanted to be just like her, and I'm sure she had no idea how she was reaching me all the way in Woodland Hills, California, but it's special for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And that's, again, what we're talking about, diversity, especially diversity on Broadway, is that the more people can see themselves represented, the more connected they'll be, the more we definitely need Black and brown kids in the audience, because it's, you just hear how privileged a lot of people are to have the opportunity or to know about it, right? Like just even knowing about Broadway or off-Broadway or rush tickets, right? Like most of the tickets I get are either press or rush or lottery or standing room, right? There are so many options for how to get a discounted ticket. And I feel like people just don't know about that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. People don't know. And I was just saying the other day, because, there's been a lot of like talk, especially lately, about having representation, for other races and whatever. Right. And I was saying, like, when you're a kid and you like go to the toy store and you're going to pick out like a doll or whatever, you always pick the one that looks the most like you. For me growing up, we didn't have any Black Disney princesses. But I was like Team Jasmine from Aladdin all the way, because I felt like she was the most like me. When we were like pretending to be the Spice Girls, I was always scary. If you had blonde hair, you were baby. Like you identified with like who looked like you and who emulated what you liked. And it's the same thing in theater. Like people need someone to look up to. Like in Frozen, I know Aisha Jackson, who was the standby for Anna, and she's Black, and she made little Black dolls, little Black Anna dolls, and she would hand them out at the stage door to the little Black girls who would go see Frozen. And for her, I mean, I can't imagine being her and seeing little young Black girls dressing up as Anna to come see her. And she wanted to make sure that they had something special that they could see themselves in to take home. And so she would hand those out. But it's really important. Like, I don't know why people don't realize how important it is, but it's important.
It sure is. And I've spoken about this before too, like seeing Jelani Aladdin as Hercules, right? Mm-hmm. Seeing a Black man as like a god, right? A theater actor singing, and having James Monroe Iglehart as Phil, like, just like, and then with like Krista Rodriguez, who is awesome as well, and just like the dynamics, and seeing that, like, oh wow, you can have like these diverse people playing these like typically white roles or whatever, because especially if they're like a cartoon or gods, goddesses,
right,
they were probably not white in the typical Greek and Roman, whatever. That's maybe even a different story, but it's seeing like, you just see the representation and the kids outside, exactly what you were saying, right? Seeing the kids, like that to me just makes it all worth it, right? Because when they feel like, oh, well, I saw them on that stage, I can do that. I saw her, I saw him, I saw them. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. Completely.
And this hour has like flown by, and it's crazy. So I always like to ask at the end, I kind of like lump these three things together. Like, if there's anything that you want people to keep an eye out for, any nonprofits or charities that you specifically like love, and just like where people can connect with you.
Yeah. So charity wise, so my good friend Matthew Johnson, he actually just partnered with a charity called New Alternatives. And New Alternatives basically provides support for LGBTQ plus homeless youth, which the majority of them are people of color, they're Black, they're Latino. And so basically the work that they do, it enables them to transition out of the shelter system, and it helps them live stable adult lives. They give them long-term support, they give them weekly case management, they give them education, life skill workshops, programs for HIV plus youth. And so June for them is usually a really big fundraising month because it's Gay Pride. However, now all the Pride events are canceled because of COVID. So they usually actually make their entire annual income in the month of June. And this year, that's not going to happen. So my friend Matthew Johnson produced a concert that was streamed on YouTube live a few days ago. He's going to re-air the concert, and it's a fundraising event. So he's re-airing it June 25th on YouTube. So you can search Beyond the Shelter on YouTube. I'm in it singing. Aisha Jackson, who I mentioned before, is in it. A bunch of Broadway folks are in it. And their goal is to raise $30,000 by the end of the month. They're already at $18,000, which is great. So we would love to get them to $30,000. So you can go to newalternativesnyc.org to donate. And then you can also just search Beyond the Shelter on YouTube on June 25th and watch the re-airing of the concert. So yeah. And then to connect with me, you can connect with me on Instagram at Emilie, Emilie Battle. And then I also run a fitness business. So if you want to get your group fitness on, I teach classes on Zoom right now. They're always pay what you can. So you can pay $5, $25, nothing at all. I want to just give people an opportunity to work out and be healthy and, just move during this quarantine. And I didn't want price to be a limitation. So you can follow my fitness business on Instagram at BattleBodyNYC.
You're such a wealth of knowledge and creativity and just so much going on. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Very fun to see. And I will definitely stay tuned to that. I also want to let people know about the Okra Project, who've been doing a lot of great work with Black trans, a lot of homeless as well. There is that need to support a lot of people right now. And if you have anything that you can give, $5, $10, $25, anything. I always donate in 18 or L'chaim.
Yes.
in the Jewish tradition. So I've been kind of doing like 18 for a few different ones, and I'll definitely now donate on your behalf
Thank
to
you.
your one. But that's really great. And if y'all want to continue watching The Show Must Go Online, you can subscribe to this channel, bwaySHO. That's bwaySHO, like you see all across the banner here. And Tariq Davis is coming on tomorrow at 3:30, and then Jelani Remy is coming on Friday from Ain't Too Proud. So we've got Freestyle Love Supreme, Ain't Too Proud, and both of those are at 3:30 tomorrow because we're being aware of the Broadway for Black Lives Matter videos that are coming on. So also, if you haven't signed up for those, you can go to bwayforblm.com, I'm pretty sure, and that will connect you for a way to figure out how to make Broadway more diverse and inclusive. Yeah. And on that note, thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in. You are wonderful, and I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.